Welcome to Understanding the Bible with Pastor Stephen. This is Season 3, Episode 8, Gods, Humans, Aliens, and Ghosts, Part 3, about gods. So last time we had talked about how demons came about and God made them sometime before the 6 days of creation, and how they were in heaven until Satan convinced a third of them to rebel against God, and that's Revelations 12. Their offspring in Genesis 6, the sons of God, Bain Elohim, is not humans. It is clearly angels. And they came down and had offspring that became giants and mighty men, men of old, men of renown in those days. And that was right before Noah's flood. So this is the conclusion to that part in regards to what these were, what they produced, and how the ancient gods, the mythologies, came about. So today we're going to delve into the angels, okay? The words for angels in the Bible, in the Hebrew, is Malach. In the New Testament, it's angelos. And the difference is the Old Testament was Hebrew, the New Testament is Greek. And then in the Old Testament, when it talks about spirit beings, it talks about Elohim, which means spirit or mighty. And in the New Testament, the Greek is pneuma, which means spirit or breath. So spirit beings can appear and disappear at will. Seen in their own form sometimes in the Bible as visions or people transported to heaven to see them or in dreams. And then at times they were actually showing in their true form, causing fear. And of course, I've never seen an angel in their true form, thank God, because from what I've read, they're terrifying. But they're indescribable. Some of the things that they talk about in the Bible is that angels have wheels within wheels and wheels with eyes on them and fire turning upon itself with lamps going up and down. And then other things that they're described as is in human terms, the people that see them try and describe them as various creatures or liken them to creatures that they have already seen on earth, like dragons or serpents or bears or other birds or, just various creatures that they can relate to. So my concept, just overall here, is that either when angels appear in their true form to us, we don't understand it, because they are supernatural spiritual beings, and it's confusing to us to see them. So I kind of look at it as like a fourth dimension being showing, like stretching his hand through and showing part of him to us. And in this reality, in our three-dimensional space where we see things with light in our eyes, and angels might be beings of light, it's very complicated and confusing on what we might actually see scientifically. We might just be seeing light that they've manipulated. We might be seeing part of their true form, or we might be seeing their entire true form of this angelic being that is supernatural, and it blows our mind. And the best we can do is compare it to an eagle or a bird. You see what I'm saying? Like, we don't really know, and science can't explain angels. So what we get in descriptions of angels is oftentimes just part of it. But what we do know in the Bible is that angels appeared many times as humans, and they had substance, and they were fully human organs, because they were able to pick things up. They were able to grasp people, wrestle with them. They were able to eat food, swallow food, and talk and use their vocal cords and sound like humans, not mighty angelic beasts, okay? So we know that when they take form on this earth, it's actual, real, physical substance with all the organs and shapeshifters, if you will. They can actually turn into a human to interact with us. And then, of course, we know from Genesis 6, we talked about last time, they were able to physically take mortal women and have sex with them and produce offspring. Now, we're going to get into the specifics on what they look like according to the Bible. So here we go. I'm just going to run through different verses. I can't go through them all, but what I did glean is a lot. So pay attention here. I'm going to go through it fast, write down references if you want to study it on your own. The book of Genesis, it talks about the fact that angels have flaming magical swords, if you will. Genesis 3:24. So God, he drove out the man, and he placed at the east end of the Garden of Eden cherubims and a flaming sword which turned every way to keep the way of the tree of life. That's interesting as far as the flaming sword. And of course, that's the first time we see the word cherubims, which is a unique word that has no comparable meaning. It's just the title or name of this type of being. Okay. And then if we look at Genesis 18, starting in verse 2, we see that angels can take human form. And he, Abraham, lifted up his eyes and looked, and lo, 3 men stood by him. So they just appeared. And when he saw them, he ran to meet them from the tent door and bowed himself toward the ground and said, My Lord, if now I have found favor in thy sight, pass not away, I pray thee, from thy servant. Let a little water, I pray you, be fetched, and wash your feet. Rest yourselves under the tree, and I will fetch a morsel of bread and comfort you your hearts. And of course, he did those things, if you read the rest of the story in that chapter. And they ate, and they talked, and they washed their feet. So physical human beings, but they were actually angels, you see revealed at the end of the story. Hebrews 13:2 says, Be not forgetful to entertain strangers, for thereby some have entertained angels unawares. They are so entirely human that humans can't tell a difference. That's what that means. Entertained angels unawares. Then we have the book of Exodus. They are invisible and deadly. This one is called the Destroyer. Exodus 12:23. For the Lord will pass through to smite the Egyptians. This was the 10th plague in Egypt. And when he seeth the blood upon the lintel and on the 2 side posts, the Lord will pass over the door. So God is coming, and that's the word for Jehovah. The Lord will pass over the door and will not suffer the destroyer to come in to smite you. Suffer the destroyer means send or make, and destroyer is just something. So the Lord Jehovah passed over the land, and if he saw the blood on the lintel and the side posts of the door, he would not send in this thing called the destroyer to kill. I would venture to say that's probably an angel that God had with him with a sword, my guess. Okay. Numbers 22:31. They are hidden beings, but they can appear to us. Then the Lord opened the eyes of Balaam, and he saw the angel of the Lord standing in the way, and his sword drawn in his hand, and he bowed down his face and fell flat on his face. The angel was hidden from him and then let himself appear. 1 Kings. This talks about the king of Syria at the city of Dothan. 2 Kings. 2 Kings 6:16. And he answered, Fear not, for they that be with us are more than they that be with them. And Elisha prayed and said, Lord, I pray thee, open his eyes, that's his servant, that he may see. And the Lord opened the eyes of the young man, and he saw, and behold, the mountain was full of horses and chariots of fire round about Elisha. That's a cool story, 2 Kings 6. But they have horses and chariots of fire, and there's a whole army of angels. That one's interesting. They're all interesting, honestly, but there's just some cool stuff in here about the angels, that they also have beasts and modes of transportation. Then 2 Chronicles 32:21, and the Lord sent an angel which cut off all the mighty men of valor and leaders and captains in the camp of the king of Assyria. So these angels are powerful, right? Against humans, of course. Now in Job, it talks about how they have power over nature. Read the whole story of Job. It's amazing. But in chapter 1, verse 6, now there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan came also among them. There you go, sons of God, Bain Elohim, angels, and Satan with them, right? While he was yet speaking, there came also another and said, let me clarify this. Then in verse 16, it tells what Satan did. And the servants of Job are running up to Job and telling him what happened. So while Job was yet speaking, there came also another and said, the fire of God, fire of Elohim, the spirit being, is fallen from heaven and hath burned up the sheep and the servants and consumed them, and I only am escaped to tell thee. So Satan had the power to bring fire from heaven to burn up the servants and the sheep. Verse 17, while he was yet speaking, there came also another and said, the Chaldeans made out 3 bands and fell upon the camels and have carried them away. Yea, and slain the servants with the edge of the sword, and I only am escaped alone to tell thee. So here Satan was able to manipulate armies, 3 bands of Chaldeans, to come and destroy Job's people. Verse 18, while he was yet speaking, there came also another and said, thy sons and thy daughters were eating and drinking wine in their eldest brother's house, and behold, there came a great wind from the wilderness and smote the 4 corners of the house, and it fell upon the young men, and they are dead, and I only am escaped alone to tell thee. Here Satan has control of the wind, or to cause a tornado, or whatever it was that knocked the house down, right? Then in Ezekiel, it talks about the cherub. And this is, you read all of Ezekiel, this is lots of cool stuff. But we're going to look at chapter 1, just a few key verses here. Verse 4, and I looked, and behold, a whirlwind came out of the north, a great cloud, and a fire enfolding itself. And a brightness was about it, and out of the midst thereof is the color of amber out of the midst of the fire. Also out of the midst thereof came the likeness of 4 living creatures, and this was their appearance. They had the likeness of a man, and everyone had 4 faces, and everyone had 4 wings. And their feet were straight feet, and the sole of their feet was like the sole of a calf's foot. So here's angels that walk on hooves, and they sparkled like the color of burnished brass. And they had the hands of a man under their wings on their 4 sides. As for the likeness of their faces, they 4 had the face of a man, the face of a lion on the right side, and they 4 had the face of an ox on the left side. They 4 also had the face of an eagle. So angelic beings with heads, faces of animals. Verse 13, as for the likeness of the living creatures, their appearance was like burning coals of fire and like the appearance of lamps. It went up and down among the living creatures, and the fire was bright, and out of the fire went forth lightning. And the living creatures ran and returned as the appearance of a flash of lightning. When they move, it looks like lightning. Verse 24, and when they went, I heard the noise of their wings like the noise of great waters, as the voice of the Almighty, the voice of speech, as the noise of a host. That's just one of them, the cherub. Well, it says 4, but there you go. So that is a description of one of the angels. Then in chapter 28, he compares the king of Tyre to Satan, and it reveals more to us about Satan himself. 28 verse 13, it says, thou hast been in Eden, the garden of God. Every precious stone was thy covering. The sardius, topaz, and the diamond, the beryl, the onyx, and the jasper, the sapphire, the emerald, and the carbuncle, and gold. The workmanship of thy tabrets and of thy pipes was prepared in thee in the day that thou wast created. This is symbology in regards to his voice. It says the pipes that were prepared in you, tabrets. Okay, he's talking about the angelic voice of Satan. Thou art the anointed cherub that covereth, and I have set thee so. Thou wast upon the holy mountain of God. Thou hast walked up and down in the midst of the stones of fire. Thou wast perfect in thy ways from the day that thou wast created till iniquity was found in thee. Then we go to Isaiah chapter 6, verse 2. There's a different kind of angel here called seraphims. Above it stood the seraphims. The actual translation for the word seraphim is burning fiery ones. Each one had 6 wings. With twain he covered his face, and with twain he covered his feet, and with twain he did fly. And one cried unto another and said, Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole earth is full of his glory. And the posts of the door moved at the voice of him that cried, and the house was filled with smoke. Fiery burning ones that when they speak causes the door posts, the beams of the house to shake and fill the house with smoke when they talk. Very descriptive and very, very different, right?